Hello, everybody. Welcome along to Sportsbet TV with me, Paul Alster, as I look forward to one of the big days racing of the whole year across the world. It is Saturday, the 3rd of June, and it's going to be the Betfred Derby this year at Epsom. And this year, it's going to go off much earlier than is usually the case. We'll be starting at 1:30 because of the clash with a big football match. So it will be fascinating to see how that affects turnover in the betting markets, how it affects the crowds on the course itself, and of course the atmosphere of the race too, because we normally have 3-4 races to build up to the big one. There'll just be the one race and then straight into the Derby. By the way, if you're just joining me for the first time, I'm offering free tips here at Sportsbet each and every weekend, and all you have to do to keep in touch is to press the subscribe button just below this screen. Well, I'm going to take you to my two selections for Saturday, and the first of them is in the Betfred Derby, for which there'll be full analysis available at my Out in Front subscription service. The link for which is just below this screen on the Patreon link, and there's a lot of information there and quite a number of tips coming up there this weekend, and of course going forward as we move on to other big meetings, including most particularly Royal Ascot a bit later in the month. But what I want to say is that not only will I be covering that meeting, but of course all the big meetings, such as the Irish Derby meeting, the Newmarket July, Glorious Goodwood, the Ebor fixture, loads of other big meetings. And I'll also be giving you tips every weekend, extensive tipping, as well as through the week on occasions as well, when there are even no festival fixtures. So do check that out. What I will say about the Derby here is that I think this is one of the most open renewals for many a long year. And because of that, I'm inclined to look at two horses. One of them, I'm going to go into more detail on that one out in front, but I'll be kind of backing both of them because I do think there could be a surprise in this year's renewal. The favourite here, just about still, is August Rodin for Aidan O'Brien, who of course was the top 2-year-old of last season, winning the Group 1 Verton Futurity at Doncaster in very testing ground at the end of the season, having shown excellent form earlier in the campaign. And he was a very much a warm order to go well in the Guineas, but he really bombed out, as did all Aidan's runners that weekend. And they haven't lost faith in him at Ballydoyle. They still think he could potentially be a great horse. They were talking of him as a Triple Crown winner, which of course is not going to happen now. But it is a bit of a leap of faith to be supporting August Rodin on the much quicker service, up to 1.5 miles, which will probably suit him much better than the mile this year. You know, I just couldn't be backing him. He's one of 3 for Aidan O'Brien. He's got a couple more at much bigger odds. The other market principles, well, of course, a lot of people will be hoping Frankie Dettori bows out on his last ride in the Derby, the great Frankie. He's riding one for the Gosdens. That's a rest. Then it would be a fairy tale sign-off for Dettori. A rest was really quite impressive, I think you'd say, without being spectacular in the Chester Vase. It was soft ground. I did know that Frankie challenged wide coming into the straight, and it did seem that there were occasions where the horse wasn't completely balanced at Chester, which makes me just a little anxious about how he's going to handle it at Epsom. But he has since been for a spin around the track, which should have helped him a lot. So he is definitely on the short list. Michael Stauder, of course, has won this many times, including last year with Desert Crown, and of course with the great Showgirl all those years ago, amongst others. He has a horse called Passenger, who looked very good when he won on his debut in the Wood Ditton, and then he didn't get the run of the race in the Dante Stakes, where he eventually dead heated for 3rd. Only 2 runs, but he's clearly progressing. Is he progressing fast enough to be able to win a race at this level? That is the big question. And then of the rest, well, of course, the Foxes was the one who finished ahead of Passenger at York. He won the Dante Stakes. He was in the right position at the right time, and he stayed on really strongly to score for Andrew Balding. And Andrew's having a very good season already. And don't rule out the Irish hope Spreewell, for Jessica Harrington, whose horses are absolutely on fire at the moment. And this one is really improving this year. He's 2 from 2, but both of those wins have come on soft or even softer heavy ground. So will he handle the quicker surface? Those are the main contenders, I would say, that most people are focusing on. As I say, there are 2 horses of interest to me. One I'll be going into detail on at Out in Front, but the other one is Pierro. Now, Pierro is trained by Ed Walker and is the mount of Tom Marquand. Very good trainer, very good jockey. This is a horse who made a perfectly satisfactory racecourse debut in December. I think they were just keen to get a little bit of a run into him before his winter break. He finished 6 of 13 at Kempton in a novice stakes over a mile. But then he really impressed first time out this season, both physically and mentally. He looked to have done really well from 2 to 3. And I was very much taken with the way he quickened away from his rivals in a decent race at Newmarket, a 1.25 mile novice stakes at the Craven meeting. He beat the quite well-regarded Carl Burt trained Liberty Lane by 3.5 lengths, and that's pretty fair form. But then after that, he ran in the Lingfield Derby Trial, and that was a race that you may recall was switched from the turf to the all-weather because the turf course was waterlogged after torrential rain. Now, that might not have proved ideal for Pierro, but he ran an absolute blinder, and he was the only one to make a race with it with Military Order. Charlie Appleby's Military Order, who's one of the market principals for the Derby on Saturday. A Military Order, of course, is a full brother to the Derby winner of a couple of years ago, Adaya. So this horse is bred to be very, very good, Military Order. And I do think he's a horse that is going to be bang there. But I think that Pierro, who in the end was beaten only 1.25 lengths, having put in a strong challenge going to the furlong pole and kept on well, I think he's got every chance of getting that much closer to Military Order. And when you look at the odds on offer, and last time I took a glance at them this Friday morning, Military Order is offered at 9 to 2 second favourite behind Auguste Rodin, whereas Pierro, for some reason, is 22 to 1 each way. And I think that 22 to 1 each way at the time of this recording with Coral, Ladbrokes, 10 bet, there may well be others because he appears to be on the slide, and I'm hoping we'll get 4 places offered with some firms. I don't understand why he's 4 times the price when he was only beaten just over a length, and I feel that the all-weather trap probably didn't really play to his strengths there at Lingfield. So I think he looks the value in this race, along with my other selection that I'll be speaking of at Out in Front. And I think that 22 to 1 is too big, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him attracting market support on the morning and leading up to the race itself. So my Derby selection for you here at Sportsbet is going to be Pierro, who I'm expecting to really make his presence felt. If Military Order is there at the furlong pole and challenging, I'm expecting Pierro to be banged there with him, all being well. I hope it's going to be a great race. It really looks a fascinating renewal. And my second selection for you here at Sportsbet on Derby Day is going to be at Epsom in the 5:05 race. Now, this is a 6 furlong race. It's called the JRA Tokyo Trophy handicap. There are 14 runners. Remember, the going officially as of Friday morning is good to firm in places, but I don't think anybody will be surprised if it really rides pretty close to good to firm all round. And the 5:05 is a hot handicap that includes last year's winner, which is Mr. Wagyu, trained by John Quinn, who's only £2 higher here. And he comes into the race having run back to form when only beaten 3 lengths at York in a big field, 7th of 21 behind Bielsa. And that was just a few weeks ago. And John Quinn has a good record in this race. He's won it twice in the last 5 years. And Mr. Wagyu could easily have been trained with this race in mind, and he's 5 to 1 favourite. Now, another trainer that's done very well of late in this race is Ian Williams. Indeed, he's won 2 renewals in the last 4 years, and he's booked Ocean Murphy for his charge Night on Earth, who's also visored for the first time. So it does look as if he means business. And this horse is now £5 lower than at the start of the season. And he was only beaten 1.25 lengths on his latest start at Windsor. So another one I think that punters will be taking quite a look at. Now, one horse that's already done very well this season is the Jenny Candlish trained Probe. Now, Probe used to be trained in Ireland by Dermot Weld. He won 2 for Dermot Weld on soft ground there, and he won on his debut for Jenny Candlish in March at Wolverhampton on the all-weather, and then he was second at Newmarket before he went back to Newmarket at the Guineas meeting early last month, and he won by a length and a quarter on good to soft ground. So a horse who's bang on his game here. He's gone up £7. Question is the ground, and it will be very interesting to see if he's able to maintain his form off the higher mark. Now, the ground won't be an issue with the Hughie Morrison trained Haymaker. This one won on his latest start over 6 furlongs on good to firm ground at Windsor and has gone up £4, but he's also going up in class as well, and that's the question mark with him. While Indian Creek, trained by Jack Shannon these days, who was third at Windsor, he reopposes, and Connections must feel they've got a chance of bridging the gap. Now, of the rest, Ruth Carr, a northern trainer in very good form, has Badri, and this one finished in front, just in front of Mr. Wagyu at York last time, has gone down £1, and he is another one in with a bit of a squeak. But my choice here in what is an open race, as the betting suggests, they are betting 5 to 1 the field. My choice is Apollo 1, who's trained by Peter Sharambulos and is the mount of last year's Derby winning jockey Richard Kingscote. Now, this is a 5-year-old who is ideally suited by 6 furlongs and decent to quick ground, and he's got both of them here on this occasion. He's got a good record, this horse. He's four wins from 21 starts, but also 6 places, which means he's got virtually a 50% at least place strike rate. He was a good young horse in 2020, third in the Group 3 Solario Stakes as a juvenile. He went on to win Enlisted Company as a 3-year-old, and last year, running at a high level in very good handicaps, also ran well at Royal Ascot when he was 8th in the Wokingham Handicap on good to firm ground of a mark of 98. And he ended last season on a high. He won a £75,000 handicap, the London Sprint final on the all-weather over 6 furlongs at Kempton. So this is a horse who is used to holding his own at a pretty high handicap level. Now, he was off for 6 months before reappearing on good to soft ground on his first start this season at Newmarket, over 6 furlongs, on ground a little bit softer than ideal. And I thought he ran an absolute blinder to finish third there behind Probe in that 21-runner race. And that, mark you, was after being squeezed out over a furlong out. And he rallied really well. And he looked to me a horse who's on very good terms with himself. And I think he'll be better for that run. Remember, Probe was already fit after 2 runs this season, and he's £7 better off with Probe, and now he has his preferred ground as well. Now, Richard Kingscote has only ever ridden this horse twice in the past. He was beaten a neck on him the first time, and the second time he made no mistake, winning that £75,000 handicap at Kempton last autumn. The only negative here really is the draw. He's drawn in 14. And there's no doubt about it, that isn't ideal, but it would be a disaster if the horse was a front runner because he would have to work so hard to get across, but he isn't. And so I'm expecting that Richard will find a way to slot him in, hopefully into midfield as they start to come down the hill to Tattenham Corner. And I'm hoping he'll be in a good enough place to strike going down towards the final furlong. And at the time of this recording, Apollo 1 is offered at 7 to 1 each way, and that is with William Hill. That's for 4 places. Plenty of others offering 13 to 2, including Boyle Sports, Corals and Ladbrokes. And he does appear to be on the drift a little bit, so it wouldn't surprise if even better than 7 to 1 becomes available. So that's my second free selection for you here at Sportsbet. Apollo 1 at Epsom in the 5:05 to go along with Pierro to run a really big race for Ed Walker. Remember, he has trained Group 1 winners in the past. He trained Starman to win in Group 1 company, and maybe he can do it again in the Derby on Saturday at 1:30 with Pierro. So those are my 2 for you. I hope you have a great day's punting at Epsom. Remember, if you want to get more tips for the weekend and going forward into what is the real sort of plum period for flat racing from June through to August, check out my Patreon service at the link below. But for now, from me, Paul Alster, I'll say goodbye and enjoy a great racing weekend.